Hi, I'm Callie and this is Kapowski Reads, and I'm doing a TBR video for the first time in ages. I don't usually do a TBR video because I don't have a really fun way of planning my TBR. I basically just pick a bunch of books I want to read and work my way through them. There's usually very little method to the selection, just what I fancy on the day that I decide to pick. But this month it's different because two booktubers that I adore are doing readathons during September and they have opened up their TBR games. So I'm joining in and I love a TBR game. My favourite time of the month is when people release their TBR game videos and I just lap them up. They're so enjoyable. So I'm really excited to be able to join in myself. So the first TBR game that I am joining in with is Becca's Bookopoly, as she is doing Bookoplathon. Bookoplathon, yeah. I feel like I'm pronouncing that completely wrong, so I might be. I will link in the description the video where Becca announces September Bookoplathon, and yeah, so if you want to go and watch that video, feel free. It was great fun. I enjoyed watching it too. So I played one round, kind of this. I decided that I was going to just do one loop of the board and read as many books as I got. Left it up to the dice to decide, and I ended up getting 8 books. It would have been 7, but I got a double on my 7th roll, so 8. For roll 1, I got a TBR Vet, which is just a book that's been on my TBR for a really long time. So I went with The Betrayals by Bridget Collins. I received this book in, I want to say it was Christmas of 2019. It was definitely pre-Panny D. So it feels like I've been planning to read it for a long time because there was a good few months where it was on my monthly TBR and I just never got round to it. I think I was just a little bit scared because I loved the binding and I just got the fear that maybe I wouldn't love this just as much. So I'm going to read this and hopefully I'm going to love it. I believe that this book is a kind of dark academia book which takes place in a school and sort of surrounds a game. And there are 2 characters who were once friends and something happened and it means that they're not friends anymore. And I think it's all about their relationship. But like I said, I've had this book on my list for a really long time. I could be making that all up. I could just open the dust jacket and read the blurb, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just go in with the idea that I have in my head. For roll 2, I got Dice Roulette, which just meant that I had to roll 2d6 and there was a table from which it would tell me the page number bracket that my next book should be between. So I rolled a 7, which was between 325 pages and 374 pages. And I chose Hear No Evil by Sarah Smith. And this book is based on real life events during the 17th century when a young deaf woman witnessed a terrible crime of a child being thrown into the River Clyde. And this book is just about her trying to be understood and basically avoid going to the gallows. This is a book that I have been planning to read in September. I got it from the library and I've put it aside just for September because it's part of my plan for my Reading Scottish video this month. So a little bit of a spoiler for you there. This book is going to feature in that video, hopefully. Roll 3 was summer, so a book that gave me summer vibes. And I've got the autumnal cardigan on. I am clearly ecstatic about summer coming to an end. I hate summer. But I did have a little look and I had a huge pile of summery kind of books that I had planned to read this summer and just didn't make time for, or I had too many of them that there simply wasn't enough time. That kind of feels like the more logical explanation. But top of that list of the books that I wish I had time to read when it was seasonally appropriate was Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia, who is one of my favourite authors. So I am working my way through her back catalogue and I'm going to read this and I think I think I'm going to love it. Of course I think I'm going to love it. I've loved every book that I've read by this author. And that's 5 books, 6 books, 5 or 6, I can't remember. But that's a lot of books. So I'm pretty excited about this. This seems to be a dual timeline book, which all sort of surrounds music and mixtapes and features, I believe, teenagers. So in the older timeline, they are discovering music and finding ways that it becomes magic for them. I'm not sure if it is actual magic or sort of just feels like magic but isn't. And then in the more modern timeline, the characters are returning back home and into each other's lives and are just trying to reform that sort of magic that they had. I really am intrigued by this because it's set in the 80s and like I'm very, very much a fan of 80s music. So high hopes. I should really lower my expectations, but I really think it's going to be good. Roll 5 was a chance card, and I decided before playing this game that for the chance cards I was going to number my outstanding 22 books that I want to read in 2022 and just roll a dice and read whichever one got picked. I did have 12, no I didn't, I had 11 books left from my 22 in 22. So I basically assigned them a number from 2 to 12 and I ended up getting the number that correlated with The Last Graduate by Naomi Novik, which I meant to read this, story of my life, I meant to read this ages ago, and the sequel I think actually comes out in September and I'm not ready to read that book. I've not read book 2, I can't read book 3. This is the second book in the Scholomance series, which takes place in a magical school that is actually trying to destroy the students, which is actually so fun to read about. So I'm very much looking forward to finding out what happens in the school and how many victims there are this time. I think there's going to be loads. So I'm excited about this. My expectations are super high. Roll 5 is a book featuring death. And this might be where I've kind of set my expectations regarding my reading ability a little high, because I went with Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, which is quite chunky. But I really want to read this book and I'm gonna. So there we are. And this book I believe has a bit of a sort of mixy, timey-wimey timeline again, which is something I very much like in a book. And the older timeline is about Clara and Flo, who were lovers in a boarding school for girls. They end up falling victim to a wasp attack and the school is sort of thought to be haunted, and then a film crew show up and they're going to be making a film about the school and the multiple, by that point, grisly deaths that have happened there. And I think that maybe some more grisly events are going to happen. And this is a book that my friend Amanda strongly recommended to me, and I bought it based on her review of it. So again, expectations possibly too high, but I don't care. I'm looking forward to this a great deal. Rule 6 was multiple POV. So I went with Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Ayamidi. Again, this is a book I've been planning to read for a long time. It's one of my 22 in 2022 and I have heard so many really good things about this book. I think it's going to be one for me. This is yet another book that takes place in a prestigious school. Really, I'm in a dark academia mood because this is the fourth book that I've got that features some sort of learning establishment. So that's where I am right now. And in this book, I have heard it pitched as a mixture of Gossip Girl and Get Out. And while I haven't seen Get Out, I utterly love the drama of Gossip Girl. So I'm kind of looking forward to this. I think this is going to be a lot of high school drama, secrets, and what's the word I want? Blackmail. And yeah, it's a little bit chunky because clearly I wasn't looking at page numbers when I was picking a month-long reading TBR, but oh well. For community shelf, I rolled a 6, which I had written a list of the types of books that I was wanting to read, and for this I ended up getting a NetGalley book. Like so many other people, I'm a little behind with my NetGalley reads, but I'm trying to do something about that. So I'm going to be reading Daughter of Darkness by Catherine and Elizabeth Corr, which is a book that I tried to read this earlier, but I didn't really have the time to focus on it, and you know, COVID brain, I was struggling to concentrate, and I really wanted to give this book a fair shot because it's kind of based on Greek mythology, and that is, oh, that's something I love in a book. I want more books with Greek mythology in them, actually. And this book is all about a trip to the underworld to try to rescue a lost wife from Hades. And I don't know how well that's going to turn out for all involved, but I am excited to find out how it does turn out. And so that roll was a double. So I ended up having to roll one more, which ended up on Spring. So a book that gave me springtime vibes. And I went with The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And I did try to read this book earlier, maybe like 3 weeks ago, but just I was struggling quite a bit. So I put it down and I plan to come back to it. I'm going to come back to it this month because my concentration is a lot better now. And this book is about a sort of debutante who is introduced to society, but it doesn't really go the way she hoped it would. And she has telekinetic powers and meets a man who promises to help her sort of make an introduction to society in a way that is more successful than the previous attempt. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia, so here's hoping I love this one too. And the cover of this book just gave me a really gave me springtime vibes. So I'm hoping to get through those books during the whole month, but I'm doing another readathon which takes place over 1 week, and that is Christy Reads Roll the Rainbowthon. Oh, mouthful. Again, I will pop a link in the description to the video where Christy Reads describes and explains the readathon, but basically it was her TBR game which involves prompts and specific colours. So I will let you know the prompts that I had and just a vague description of the colours because I don't have the cards. And I have tried my best to see if I can make any of the prompts for this readathon match the prompts that I have for Becca's Bookoplathon. Maybe by the end of the month I will be able to pronounce that in a quicker way. I'm not holding much hope though. I'm not the best with tongue twisters. So some of these are doubles, which gives me a little bit, makes me feel a bit more confident in my ability to get through them. Obviously, as this readathon is just 1 week, from the 12th to the 18th of September, there is no way I'm getting through all of the books on this list. It's not happening. Not if I want to, you know, work my full-time job and sleep and, you know, shower and do things that people do with their lives. So I'm not planning to get through them all, but I wanted to have options for each of the prompts so that I could choose as I saw fit. So prompt 1 was a seasonal read. that had sort of reddy oranges on the front cover. So I've chosen Ace of Spades, which for me, books set in an academic setting they're seasonal, they're autumnal. We go back to school in Aberdeen the 22nd of August, but the universities go back in September. So for me, late August to September, dark academia time. Although saying that, I could easily read a dark academia book in like February and be happy. It's the kind of book I enjoy. Prompt 2 was my choice with blues on the cover, and I have gone with Daughter of Darkness by Catherine and Elizabeth Core because it's got blues on the cover. It's a gorgeous cover. Prompt 3 was by Bookoplathon with sort of springy greens on the front cover. So I've gone with The Emperor's Babe by Bernardine Evaristo. I have read this author before. I read Girl, Woman, Other with my book club a good few years ago, and I remember enjoying that book, and I got this from a friend in a book swap, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy it. And this book is a sort of tale of womanhood and survival in a time when it was not overly a great time to be a woman. This book is set in 211, the year 211. Prompt 4 was an activity prompt, just a cozy read, which I'm fairly certain I'm going to get that done. So prompt 5 was a colour on the cover pick, and there were bright oranges, pinks, blues and oranges. And I thought Signal to Noise by Silvia Marino Garcia just fitted that prompt absolutely perfectly. So this is my selection for that prompt. And the next prompt was a colour prompt with sort of blues on the front cover. So I'm going with The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant, which is an absolutely gorgeous cover and little sprayed edges. This is a middle grade book about magical hat makers, and the hat maker disappears and his daughter has to find out what has happened with him. All the while it looks like the hats, which I think are magical, seem to be being used for bad times. It sounds like it's going to be great fun, and I believe there's a sort of band of friends in this, which is one of my favourite tropes in a book. And the last book was again another cover pick, and it was a book that had black, white and red on the front cover. So I'm going with Forest of Stars by Heather Kastner. This is another sort of magical book. I'm very much in the mood for dark academia and magic this month, and I'm so okay with that. This is by a young woman who has lost her father and is trying to find him. There is magic involved and a tightrope act, and I believe it's sort of gothic and creepy and chilling, which is definitely something that I think is good for a September read to sort of ease me into the October spooky reads. And I say that as somebody who hates being scared. But I love a gothic read. Not a scary read, got to be a gothic read. So those are that's my TBR for September, and it is pretty hefty. But I'm hoping to get through them all. If I don't, I'm not gonna cry. I'm gonna be okay with it. You know, worst case scenario is I just don't get them finished, but I think it's a relatively achievable TBR. And then I think about the fact that I have 5 other books that I want to read for other things. So maybe I'll get them all done. Who knows? We will see. I would love to know what you plan on reading this month, so let me know in the comments. And if you want to try and guess how many of these books I'm going to get through, feel free to do so. Thanks for watching. Bye!